have a couple prints here just so we can talk about. And then if you are thinking about getting one, what you should be looking at, or if you already have one. Basically, for ZBrush guys, if you're thinking about printing your models and you don't care much about the scale, I 100% recommend you guys getting a printer of any kind. The Photon, I think, is amazing. I'm having an awesome time with my Photon. I had a couple failed prints, but it was my mistake for some of the things that I was testing with, like just layer height, different things that I'll talk about when we start talking about the softwares. But basically, I think that'll be awesome. That's an awesome option, just because price and resolution. If you look at this, you guys can have an example. This head right here, which was printed with the Photon from that Bowser model. This captures this is the same quality as a form, like a Form 1 or Form 2 from Formlabs, which is the more expensive printer on the market. And this thing it produces the same quality, and it's super cheap. The resin is super cheap. The biggest problem I have with the Form is that the resin, it will cost me $150 to buy resin, and then once the tank also kind of goes bad real fast. To me, being able to not having to buy a tank every couple prints that I do, and the resin, which you go like every time I print something, is the price of buying a Photon, which is crazy to even think about that. So I'd most definitely recommend you guys getting a resin, and also like it's kind of plug and go. You don't have to put it together. The biggest difference on the filament ones is that let me show you the Bowser. So the biggest thing on the filament one is that if you don't have a lot of money to dedicate to this right now, the filament one is way cheaper, right? Like the resin, even though the resin is cheap, half a liter of resin for the Photon is it's like $35, which is cheap, right? But depending on what you can afford, with $35 you can buy a full kind of a roll of filament, and you can print for the entire Yoshimitsu. I probably use one of these, um, to print this big. It's something like this, and that's the other point of buying the Photon, is because you wouldn't have to print something like this. The table, it's not too big, so you can only print small objects. For me to print this thing in the Photon, I would actually have to split this into 4 pieces, most likely. Like this chest that I printed on the Ender, I'll have to do like 4 different prints and find places to cut it. And then once I put it together, I'll have to fix the seams. So it's possible. And I have some friends of why didn't you, split the piece? It's like, dude, you never had to deal with something like that, obviously, because splitting the piece then to later put together, it's a lot of work, and a lot of things could go wrong, and you have to reprint it. Maybe the print got a little unstable and it bended slightly, so when you put it together, it's not perfect, and then you have to kind of think that out yourself. So it's not ideal, but you could do it, but it's not ideal. So overall, if you're trying to first of all, try to learn 3D printing, learn about resin, learn the printing process. I recommend the Ender, actually, because we'll look at the software in a second. But Cura, on this guy, you can control everything. You control the nozzle temperature, you control the bed temperature, you control how fast it goes. If the thing is failing, is because you are not understanding what the printer needs. So if you are trying to learn about 3D printing, I think the Ender is awesome. If you can afford both, I'll say just buy both. But if not, you have to look at the few things. If you just want to play with it, have fun, print some stuff on this thing, on the Ender. If I have failed prints, I was like, it doesn't matter. It's super cheap. Like this, to print this head, you're probably looking at cents, not even dollars. So this is awesome to play with and understand, and fail and have fun and play with it. You can actually get awesome results. look at this guy, this Spider-Man, which I printed from that iron spider that I made a while ago. Like this thing is pretty legit, and it's pretty tiny too. You could see I could probably not make this for production because I need to clean up a bunch of little artifacts that I got. But man, you can get like look at that. You can get a bunch of nice results on the Ender if you know what you're doing. But again, if you just want something that's like plug and go, the Photon is fucking awesome. If you look at this guy, and then just to get to see the difference, that's the Bowser that I printed with the Ender. And yeah, I'll share my presets for sure with the Cura presets with you guys. So if you look at this guy, he's okay, but if depending on the angle that you look at, you still see lines. If you're taking photos, you most definitely start seeing lines all over the place. With the Photon, no lines at all. This thing is flawless. It's legit. So if you're thinking of getting things to make it for production, just go with the resin. No brainer. If you just want to have fun and print stuff yourself, the Ender to me is also a no brainer, because otherwise you waste a lot of money just by having fun.
A couple of people were actually asking a kind of legit question, which I was curious about as well, is what's the smell like from the printer? Like, because people were asking, do they need like a dedicated room for it? Is there kind of like a vent that comes out of it, or a kind of odor?
Yeah. So for the Ender, there's like no odor. All the filaments are like organic. You can buy them. You're not gonna die. So yeah, if you have a small space, I think you should go with the filament ones, because this is like the noise level is it's not high. Pretty safe. You can actually like print toys with it, and you be like safe for your kids and all that stuff. But the Photon, there's a pretty strong smell. They're actually coming out with a resin, which I'm pretty excited that I'm gonna partner with them next month to do like a new resin that they're coming out, which is supposed to be fully organic, no smell, and that's super exciting. Dude, if that works, it's gonna be a game changer. So next month, they're actually sending me some samples so I can test it out. But if that works, then yeah, that changes everything. So let's start talking about more in depth about these printers. Let's start with the Ender, because that's going to be easier for us to understand. So I'm going to open up Cura, which is a free software that works not just for the Ender, but for pretty much all filament printers, and basically controls everything. So it's pulling up real quick. Even look at this. We'll look at this yesterday, but this thing was printed on the Ender. This thing is awesome. All right, so basically when you open Cura, you have to kind of just kind of preset your printer, which I have right now, the Ender 3. And it gives me, basically this will give you like the bed size, which is kind of what the Ender is, thousands of settings. Let me clean this up real quick. So the interesting thing about Cura is that it definitely gives you, here's some of the settings that we're seeing, but this actually has like tons of settings, like too many settings, but we don't want to unhide everything. But basically you can find yeah, that's another thing that's good to mention too. Like for the resin printers, you don't find a big kind of community online. I mean, you do find it, don't get me wrong, but for filament printers, since they're so accessible and people are being using them more than resin printers, the community online is really big. So you can find a lot of information online actually, and people that might help you if you have questions. I'm just going to import something here. Let me actually just export this thing, because this is going to be interesting. So like we said, before exporting, I am going to decimate the mesh. And you need to do that because I don't think the softwares, the other software, the Cura and the Photon, like they don't take a lot of, they can support a lot of polygons, but they're going to struggle for sure. So I definitely try to decimate it as much as I can without losing any detail. So I'm just going to do that real quick. So Rachid is saying that smooth out lines on the Ender, you can simply get 2 coats of polyurethane spray and 1 of primer. Yeah, but that will kill the details. I've tried that before. You could do that if you're printing a smooth piece, but that that would just completely blend out all the details if you do that. But you can. There are a lot of ways to smooth out the lines by spraying certain things, or I can talk about some of the things that I've been using a filament that's actually you can use acetone as solvent, so you can actually clean out some of the lines. So yeah, there are a few things you could do to clean it out. But you want to do, if you're doing like professional statues, you want to do that the least you have to, because it's gonna change your the original sculpt. So if we import the OBJ here for the legs, I'm gonna run through this real fast. But basically, the way the filament printer works is that the nozzle, it's gonna start printing on the bed and then slowly build it up, right? If you've seen it before, that's how it works. So basically, now that we have this thing here, it's on the bed, so we can kind of rotate. So the way I was dealing with scale in here is that I will find the percentage of scale that's different from my ZBrush, and then when I was importing all the pieces, I was applying the same percentage. So this way you match 100%. All right. So basically we have here. So there are a couple of things even when I'm aligning it in the filament, which is different from aligning in the resin printer, is that basically because it's building from the top or from the bottom up, the supports are just gonna support any overhang that you can see on the bottom. So we can see like all these red marks. This is basically if I do make a supports, if I do generate supports, it will start to support all these overhangs. Right, so that's kind of like this one is a little more straightforward than the resin one. It's basically that this will print, and then here it starts to be a little too much of an angle that you need a support to hold it in place. Otherwise, you start to like melt down and, or print in the air. So you don't want that. So this is just more of an estimation from the software. There are prints that you won't, like maybe it's like small enough that the resin would actually support itself, so you don't need supports. So there are a few things that you can kind of mess with to make that work. And then you control everything here, and it depends on like the filament that you're using. So for example, I'm using this ColorFab filament, and it actually tells us like what's the melting temperature, what kind of speed you should use. It gives us like kind of the ideal settings there, and it varies from different resins. Like I have this Hatchbox too as well. It's kind of a gray, which is the one that I printed the sword, and the Bowser. Like that's with this, which is a little lighter color. But this one is not solvent with anything. Like you cannot use any solvent on this. So the one that I start getting was the this ColorFab, which is a PLA PHA filament. There you go. So this thing is actually it's solvent with acetone, so you can actually clean up some of the lines. So that was that. And basically with this new one, it was very hard to stick on the table. So we'll talk more about that in a second. So basically you can control the layer height, which I usually do like 0.08, which is kind of what I find to be the lowest you can get that will still capture all the detail. If you go lowest than this, it's just kill time. I don't see any improvement. The line width, this is the size of the nozzle, right? Like we don't want it to be smaller than the nozzle, otherwise there's no point of that. The whatever is coming out the nozzle is what determines the width. So the shell, and I'll run this real quick just so you guys can see. So the shell is basically, this will try to well, like I was saying, like because it's kind of hollow inside, this will determine how much wall it will create, how much of a shell it will be. Let me see if I probably show with this. So basically, this is when I was printing this thing, this is what like a little failed print that I have, and you can kind of see from the inside, the wall thickness is basically that thickness on the outer side. So you basically have a wall thickness, and then you have the infill, which is that kind of the zigzag that's inside the support. There you go. So that's the wall thickness, and then the infill is the little supports on the inside. So basically, what I find to be better is to have more wall thickness, to increase the wall thickness, because that will preserve some of the details a little bit better. So, and the count too. Like, so basically, there's 2 there. We can kind of see here. Basically, I mean, this will be 1. The wall is not too big. If you go down here, this is kind of what the printer will do. So basically, you guys could see, it's printing the leg. Right now there are two layers on the walls, and then the infill is somewhat, pretty pretty small. There's not a lot of supports inside. So what I find to be better is to not do a lot of infill, but then do a little bit more of a wall thickness, because the infill also kills a lot of the time. This leg will print in 5 hours with the size that it is right now. But basically, here's everything we can tweak. The wall thickness, which I find to, we can even bring it to 3 depending on the model if it's too big. I think the Yoshimitsu was 3 for that. We can't really see. But yeah, so increase kind of the wall thickness. And then the top layers, right now the top layers are doing the same thing. But basically, if you want to have a bigger print and you want to have a layer height a little bit bigger, you need to work with the power of 4, I guess, or from 8 go to 12, from like 0.4 to 0.4. So you could either do like 0.08 as your layer height, or you could do 0.04, 408, 4012. So I've done prints with like 0.12, and it actually holds up pretty well. But because when you start getting to the top, you're going to start getting a lot of lines because of the angle. So you could do like a top layer with a smaller layer height. So you could do like 0.8 on a top layer, for example. But if it's already 0.8 to begin with, 0.08 to begin with, then you don't need, the top layers are going to do the same thing. So, and then the infill is, like I said, it's whatever's on the inside. It's what that support is going to give us. So I usually do 20%. You can do like 15. I try to keep it low. I found that you don't need a lot of infill, to be honest. And then I do like the gradual infill. And what this is going to do, it's basically going to, the more high it is, the highest it is, I guess, it will start to remove or reduce the percentage of the infill. So right now they have 2. You could actually do like even higher percentage at the bottom, and then when it starts to get up, it starts to reduce the amount of infill because it doesn't need as much support anymore, and it should be good. And I find also the zigzag option is good. So I apologize if you guys are not familiar with the ender, like this might be too much, but try to think about like the theory behind it, why some of these I'm making some of these choices, because it's kind of the way the printer is thinking and what the printer will do. We kind of need to detach the technology side of it from these printers, or for any printers, to be honest, because all it does, it's a very simple process. Like all it does is, dispose resin into a place, and you control everything else. So that's why even when I started doing this, I was frustrated with some of the prints that I was doing, because it was like, oh, the printer sucks, or this thing is stupid. If you think about it, this thing is super simple. That's why there's tons of 3D printers coming out, because technology wise, this thing is super simple. It just does what you tell it to do. And here, even on the software, you can see what the nozzle is actually going to do, which is super awesome, and you can troubleshoot it. in a way of like, if you're gonna have any mistakes or any failed prints, you can kind of understand what the nozzle is doing. So, and the same thing for the resin printer. Like all it does is project an image at the bottom and pull the resin up. So it pulls the resin up, goes down, projects an image, pulls it up again, goes down, projects it, and pulls it up. That's all it's doing. So if there's any reason why it failed, is because your model was not made for that process. So I think that's what I'm saying. Like taking that out, taking the printer out, and just understanding why some of these choices are made. It's the best thing you could take out of this workshop. So the infill is basically what's inside, and it basically what it does is supports the walls so the walls doesn't collapse on itself. And you need to be stable enough. The filament, it cures, like once it drops on the other resin, it hardens automatically. But if it's kind of heavy and it slowly, like you slowly start bending, and if it bends just even like a 0.02 millimeters, which is nothing, you're already going to get a line in there. So the infill is going to make sure that your thing is supported, your thing is not bending. So the more you can do it, the better, but it's going to amp your printing time for sure, because then the machine needs to be doing a lot more movement, right? You could see there, the machine needs to be doing a lot more movement for that to happen. So let's keep that in mind. The material here is like printing temperature, the build plate temperature. That comes, like I said, the filaments usually have their kind of ideal. I had to amp up the build plate temperature sometimes, just because, like I said, some of the prints weren't sticking on the table. Just so you guys can see too, like the ender comes with this kind of more of a, I don't know what this is made of, but this kind of a metal kind of table, and this thing was really good. But when I start getting failed prints, because the biggest thing you could fail on these filament printers is that the print won't stick on the table. Maybe it starts printing, and then after a while it just like detaches from it and then starts printing in the air, and then you get a bunch of like you know get stuff like this, which is kind of just printing in the air. So I ended up getting a glass table, and you can find like any piece of glass is like 20 bucks. You can actually find the one specific for ender. So this is kind of what I'm using now. And you can find this glass table anywhere. And basically that build plate temperature is like you can amp it up depending on what kind of print you're doing. And the other thing that I'm using with this is glue. So any like stick glue or whatever this thing is called. It's kind of a school sticks glue. So basically, when the blade or when the plate is heating up and it gets to that temperature of 60, I take this glue and I kind of like apply it on the table. So when it's ready to go, it will stick like a charm. So there's like some of the tricks I've tried. I've tried hairspray as well, but I don't like it as much just because of the smell. I actually got better results with the glue. So this is kind of what I've been using it. Like before, when it reaches the temperature, I put that glue in there. So when the first layers come in, they stick pretty well on the table, and I don't get any fail prints. So there's that. Printing speed. If you're getting lines, you just have to lower the printing speed, because then if the machine is going too fast, you start getting a lot of webbing. It's like when you're printing and the machine goes to another one, you get a little webbing coming to the place, and you get a lot of webbing everywhere. That's probably because your temperature and the printing speed. So you just kind of have to find the sweet spot. And then, probably the biggest thing you need to look at are the supports. So the supports are a little crazy in Cura, but they work freaking awesome. I don't like. It's pretty impressive. Like this will never work on the resin printer, but it works for this type of stuff. So basically, a couple of things that I changed. Of course, turn on generate support. For some pieces, you won't need support. Like this little guy, just kind of the one-off piece. You probably need a couple supports, but this will print most likely on its own without supports, because like of course this needs a lot of support on the resin, and that's another thing too, because this thing is printing like that, and you need support in all these things. And I'll show you why. You understand why when we start talking about the resin stuff. But for filaments, things most likely support itself when they're building, because they're kind of getting attached to each other. You know, if there are no floating points, they most likely would work. I could probably print this without supports, depending on the scale. And you kind of like, because it's building on its own, the legs support itself. Like, yeah, I could probably print this without supports. But if it's too big, then you most definitely need supports. A couple of things that I changed. Support placement, only touching the build plate. If you put everywhere, you start creating supports, you know, from the leg to the leg, and then it's just more cleanup you have to do. The angle, I leave it to 70. I think that's, you know, I got pretty good results with that. But basically means like what certain angle that the piece starts to have, that is going to generate a support. Zigzag for the support as well. I've printed stuff before with different even lines, the pattern, and it's impossible to break the support. That thing was a nightmare. But with zigzag, I feel that it's pretty easy to break the support, and it should be good. Z distance, all distance, 0.25 or 0.2. This is basically the distance from the mesh. And again, I'll share all this stuff with you guys. This is also pretty good. The build plate adhesion. So basically, it's kind of like I was saying. When it starts printing on the bed, like the biggest fail that you could have is it's not sticking. So you basically have like kind of a skirt. Brim actually give you better results. You'll make it a lot more. You'll print a lot more on the table before it starts printing the leg. So that's a good one too, just to have it. There's a couple experimental options like the tree supports. That's also pretty nice. That's why it creates all these crazy supports, almost like a tree that branches out. Because if you don't have this on, it would create a bunch of just kind of straight supports, and you want to have, especially for the complexity of some of the pieces that we're printing, you want to have the tree support turned on. So it's slicing right now. Yeah. So jump into some questions. Can room temperature affect the printing? Unless your room is like super hot, I don't think it will, because the temperatures that we're dealing with are very high. So it should be fine. Like all the nozzle and the table all have like thermostats, and they have, you know, they print on the exact temperature. So I don't think it will affect as much, unless you like your room is like super cold or super hot. But if it's kind of a normal temperature, should be fine. Guillermo is asking if I have to clean the glass bed after every print because of the glue, and the answer is yes and no. I use both sides, so I can do 2 prints without having to clean it up. But I find that I get better results if I clean it up. So even before I print, I go and I wash it real quick, because it's glue. This glue comes out real quick in the water, so it's very easy to clean it up. So I do try to clean it up as much as I can. Can you make something production ready for sale in the Ender 3? Yes, you can. I just did Monsterpalooza this year, and if you've seen my table that I did with Igor, and Igor was doing a lot of prints on the Ender. Actually, he has a CR10, but it's basically the same thing. But he was doing a lot of small prints, and we were selling in the table, and it was basically the same quality as the final thing. I don't have any of his prints in here. But yeah, you can for sure. Can Cura simulate the printing so you can detect possible failures? You can analyze the print like this, right? Kind of what I'm doing here. You can kind of come in and start seeing like, oh, where it will possibly fail, but Cura won't do that for you. You have to kind of get used to the process of like, what are the things that will fail? This thing will not fail for sure. This is a pretty simple print, and actually, I won't have many supports to have to clean it out. A lot of the things that I found too that are super awesome with filaments is that the supports don't necessarily touch the model to support it. So even to clean it, like when you detach it, it's already like almost ready to go. So that means that's awesome. The resin one, like I showed, it create a lot of artifacts, and that's the thing that I hate the most about resin prints. But yeah, here you can kind of troubleshoot and kind of go up and down and see like where you would actually need supports. Because like here, for example, on the leg, this thing will print on its own for a long time on a certain angle, and then reach the support right here, and then come up, and then it'll print on its own for a long time. So like maybe if you think that this will be a problem, it won't be. But if you think you don't want to, you know, risk it, you can kind of come in and then increase the angle supports or the number of supports, the percentage, and then run it again, and you get more supports. The time will probably go up a little bit more, but you can kind of troubleshoot it like that. So Nicholas asking if I try Simplify 3D and their supports. I haven't tried that, so I don't know the difference on the slicers or Cura. I've used Cura because when I first starting to do it or mess with filament printers, that was kind of the standard that people were using. So that's that. I haven't tried that, the other one. Let's see. Gabriel is asking what's the maximum layer height value we can try. I've seen people print it at 2, like 2 layer height. That was the highest that I've seen for bigger prints or more product stuff, and it could create actually good results. But not, I mean, you lose a lot of details for sure. But you know, you can probably go more than that. I don't know what's the max. Let's see here. Guillermo is asking if I can show the position angle for each piece of the Yoshimitsu. I don't think I have it here, but basically we can kind of talk a little bit about it because I want to show you guys some of the problems that I was having. So the biggest thing and the thing that I struggled the most was the head, because the head, like I said, once you start getting on the top line, you start getting a lot of artifacts. So I can show you that with this Bowser. And I did clean this up, but you know, I print this Bowser like this, you know, standing. So of course, when I get like on these top layers, you start getting stepping, right? Because like if the piece is in a certain angle, it kind of struggles with the layer height. So this is why you get lines. If you see here, this is what the printer is doing. And you start getting stepping depending on a certain angle, especially like when you get to the top, that's when you're going to get the most stepping. Like that, like this point right here will probably give me some bad artifacts. And here you can kind of see, let's see if this is going to focus. Oh, there you go. You can kind of see some artifacts on the top there. I mean, this thing has a lot of details, but you can kind of see some artifacts. So basically, for the Yoshimitsu, I had to then split up the head into 2 pieces because I didn't want to print it like this. Otherwise, I'm going to get a lot of artifacts on the top. I don't want to print like this because I was going to get a lot of artifacts on the face. So I just kind of had an angle in a certain way and split this into 2. So I'll show you guys this. This is how that was printed. So I did this kind of Boolean method on the face. I split that into 2 pieces. and then they fit like that. So basically, this is kind of how I had to do it. So basically, this thing was angled kind of like this way, a little bit like that, and then this thing was angled like a little bit like this. So then when I printed, you can kind of put together, and then I avoided a lot of the artifacts, a lot of artifacts on this. So that was that. You can probably, like, if you want to see the angles, you can probably go back and look at my stories on the Instagram, and you can kind of see the pieces. This arm was printed like laying down, or actually was like this, like going up. So I didn't need a lot of supports. You just print it like that. Same thing for this guy. They printed together. This waist piece, which is printed like this, just straight down like that, and it worked pretty well. Same thing for the torso. It was like just standing, and that's like I could have printed all this into one, I guess, if the printer was bigger, but I would probably get some supports on the arms and all that stuff. So I just, by splitting, I could actually angle them in a certain way. This leg was printed like upside down. One sec. This was printed upside down. And then same thing for these. Oh, these guys were actually printed like this, standing. So it came out pretty good. So that was that. Let's see.
Yeah, there was a question earlier on. Oh, it was a really good one as well. Oh yeah, it was with the Ender 3. Which material do you print with, the PLA or PETG?
Yeah, it was a PLA and PHA. Those are the two ones.
Cool.
So yeah, CNS, have you tried the material you can sculpt after printing? I've seen like wax kind of filaments, but no, I haven't. I have not tried them yet. I think wax has a much kind of their heating temperature is much lower, so I'm guessing it'll be harder to get similar results. But yeah, I'll love to try it sometime.
There's one also, when you clean resin prints and dissolve all the non-cured resin, how do you properly throw away the cleaning solution? Do you just pour it somewhere?
Yeah, we'll talk about the resin ones in a second.
Cool.
Let's see if there's anything else left in this. But I think that's it. Like after that, you just save to file, and then plug it in on a printer, the little USB thing, and it starts printing. That's that. Let me know if you guys have any questions about just the filament overall. Let me see if there's anything else that I'm missing. Oh yeah, no, I forgot the shoulders too, because those are separate pieces, and those are basically printed like this, standing like that. Yeah, like this. So like the supports were here. You can kind of see. So I mean, the results are pretty nice. Like even on the other filament that I was using, but if you look at close enough, you will see some lines. Oh, this was a failed print because of this. You see how it's hollow. I had some artifacts on this shoulder because I was testing it without cleaning the way I do it on the resins, and I got some artifacts. So don't do that. But yeah, you can see it results pretty nice. But if you angle in a certain way, especially on you take photos of it, you start seeing lines. So by using the PHA filament, I was able to then grab some acetone and rub it, and that would clean up pretty easy. And to answer your question, how to clean up the models with the ender, that's use it acetone.
Someone was asking about retraction settings. I don't know if you've seen that one.
There is the retraction option. Yeah, but I think it's just default. I think it turned off. Enable retraction. Yeah, no, it's turned on. I don't know what it does. Oh, it retracts the filament when nozzle is moving over and over. Yeah, so it's turned on. The good thing about Cura is that it does tell you like everything that you need to know. So it's good stuff. So yeah, I'll give you guys some of these presets that I have. I have one for miniature that don't have supports, one for pieces a little bit bigger. So I'll share that with you guys on the Gumroad after this. And let's jump on the resin.
Cool.
So for resin, it's a little more difficult to find a software. I'll tell you that because the printers or the especially like Formlabs, their software are kind of made for their printers. Like you're not able to export the slicing meshes, as STL. So you can't really use their printers if you don't have a Formlab. So there are a couple options. Autodesk has a Mesh Mixer, which is a pretty legit software. I've tried to use that a couple times. It does create some nice supports, but the biggest thing I was fighting against is the support generation. So if I open up the Photon slicer, which is called Chitu, I guess. Like when you buy the Photon, it actually gives you the file to install, and it's called like Photon slicer or something like that. But it's basically a reskin of this Chitu, and it basically you can do the same thing. Just import. Let me import that OBJ. Oh, you have to do STL. Sorry. So I'm just gonna export this guy as an STL. One second. I want to do the same. Oops. Is that it? This guy. Mesh Photon. So I'm just gonna go here, export STL. Okay, so if you import it, it is pretty good, to be honest, with like the way he handles the model. The way he handles the model and the way he creates supports, it's pretty legit. But if you're working with a very complex model, it does not do a good job, or enough of a good job to to generate support. So I was testing just some different options, and I'll show you guys. So you can see like this is set up to the Photon bed, and you can kind of see the size, even comparing with the Ender. All right, not this one. Oh, did I close it? Oh no. Oh, never mind. I closed it. So yeah, even comparing with the Ender 3, like this thing is small. This thing is so you guys can have an idea. It's kind of the size of your phone. So when you're printing it, it's kind of what you have to keep in mind. That's why like when you print something like this, like it's kind of like how much it occupies on the bed. So you can actually make bigger prints. This thing was kind of like the limit on height, like how big it is. So this is like kind of how tall you can make it on the Photon. And then this is like the bed. So if I wanted to make this sideways, like this wouldn't work. Like this would kind of be, or maybe it would, but it might be too tight. So again, if you were to print this thing here, like here's how much you have to cut it. Like even this waist piece, like I would have to cut it in half so it could fit in this thing. right? So like this torso here, I don't even know how the hell I was gonna print this thing in here. So again, this is kind of what you have to keep in mind. This thing is small, but I was able to print this in one shot like that. That's kind of how I print it. So, you know, if I were to do this again here, you just kind of, I would, you know, I was able to scale this up, and this will probably work. Got it. So yeah, this was kind of a, there you go. It's kind of like what I did for that, something like this. And then, you know, to generate supports, again, it's pretty straightforward. You come in here, like, so, okay, this is kind of like layer thickness, 0.2. So it's actually like you can go, you know, you can go way down. It's like 0.08, 0.04. And then the biggest difference here is that the layer height, like, it doesn't have to go super lower than what it is compared to the Ender, right? But the difference here is that, you know, the resolution on the different axes, right? Like this will just project an image and you'll be super clean. So the layer height is actually similar, but the resolution from the axis are much higher on this printer. So the layer height is about the same. I've been doing 0.04, but you can go like 0.02. I think I actually saw a decrease on quality when I went too low. So for example, this guy, I was printing these with the Photon. This is a little kind of Thor I made for Hasbro a while back, and I was testing out. So this tiny guy, I printed him on a higher res. Let's see if it's gonna focus. Come on, dude. But I printed him on a high res and actually got better results out of that stuff. Oh man.
Yeah, it's not going to focus, is it?
Anyways, but there was actually, I lost some details when I did it too small compared with some of the other ones. Okay, so these heads are 0.02. And the detail came out pretty nice. But if you look at this thing, which is 0.04, like this little head, the details are so much sharper. Sorry, guys. Doing my best. There you go. So these things are super sharp on 0.04, and the head is not as good. Come on, it's so good. Anyways, so that's that. You don't need a lot of layer height. It's basically on the secret is like on the resolution of the print of the screen, I guess. And then for the supports, I mean, I hated these supports, to be honest. You can do light, you can control like what kind of shape, the radius, and then you do an auto support, and you kind of generate the supports. But I noticed that, you know, first of all, like when you were printing like that, it would print like this on the table, right, upside down. Let's say, you know, the resin tank is down here, and you start pulling it up. So basically, your supports need to be thick enough to, you know, have a point that's gonna support this print here, so it doesn't break or fall down. Because you also have to consider the vacuum that the because it's a liquid, right? So when it's printing and it's pulling it up, there is some vacuum that's gonna pull up with the suction for the liquid on the platform. So it needs to be strong enough to hold this piece in place, right? So that's why you need a lot more supports than on a filament printer, and then your supports needs to be strong enough. For very complex pieces like this, you need to have a certain angle. So like, let's say you're gonna support, this is not too bad, but there you go. you need to have a certain angle on these attachment points. Like these angles, like you see this little angle here to when it creates, you need to have a certain width so the support sticks out enough from the piece to not weld it together. So when I was using this software, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Let's see if this one has a problem. Yeah, when I was using this, this thing was creating supports so close to the mesh that if you look at here on the belly here, like that the supports were kind of being welded together with the mesh. Come on, there you go. So it's kind of like being welded together. So it was like, you know, destroy the print when I was taking this off. So that's kind of what I didn't like about this software. So the good thing about this one is that you can actually look at it, the lines. You can kind of analyze as you go up, like where you would actually need supports, because you're basically looking at islands. This actually did a decent job with the supports, but I maybe here I'll start getting like you start welding together with the leg. This is kind of what I was talking about. This is so close to the leg right here. They will probably start welding together. What I want the software to do is to like make this spread this far away from the mesh a little bit more, to like give it more of a room or a space. So that's that. That's why I'll show you what I'm actually using. That's why I've been using this to slice, but I'm not creating supports on this. But basically this is good because you can kind of look at islands too. Like when you scrub the mouse on top here, it will give you certain islands that you can look at. And then you can kind of generate supports like that. You kind of touch it and you put a support. So you can kind of do it by hand if you want. That's pretty nice. Let's say you want a support right here. Like you generate that support right there for you. So that's pretty cool. Put a support there. Like that kind of stuff is pretty sweet. So that's that. Or you can kind of do it by hand. Like the biggest thing, like again, let's just think about the theory behind it, is because when you're printing something like this upside down, anything that's separate from it that will be kind of floating in the air needs a support for the table, from the table. Otherwise, it will print it. Either way, because it's projecting, it will print it. It will not tell you anything. And then that would just be floating on the table without supports. And then it would just keep printing on the air. So basically, when you're scrubbing your mouse like that, let's imagine that this is then upside down because this is the table. Everything that's kind of like have an island. So look at here. You see this little piece that's starting here? Like that's an island. Like when this starts printing, this would just be in the air. So you would need a support right there. So like that's kind of the theory behind it. Like of course you need a bunch of supports here. So basically what the software is trying to do is he's identifying these islands and putting the supports for you. So like this will be fine. When it gets here, like it will start printing this piece here. So you need a little support there. So that's how you troubleshoot it. You could do it by hand, but ideally you don't want to be doing this by hand, right? So you need to find a software that will do a good job for you. But that's the theory behind it. Like you just need to find the islands and add the supports. Like this will be fine. This will print all fine. You probably this will actually print fine. You just need a support because this piece will be big. So you need to just, you know, throw some supports here and there so it doesn't start melting or bending it down. So, but basically the theory behind supports on resins are islands. Like here's a good example of like when it starts getting here, like that would just float in the air. So you need to come in here, find this point, give it a support. Same thing for this, give a support. So that's kind of what the software is doing. So yeah, the reason I don't like this one too is because you cannot even manipulate these supports after you're done. You cannot like increase the angle or whatever the case might be. You could do it here, but that's kind of all you can do. Then after that, it's just more exporting. You don't want to mess with the pixels. This is the resolution of the printer and all that. You just slice it and export it, which is right here. But I'll show you what I've been using. Mesh Mixer, I started using that to try to solve some of those problems because it's supposed to be a little bit better on that. So I tried it. It actually gave me some interesting results, but it was still a little too messy. So I just want to have that to show you guys that at least I tried that. But what I've been using is the Prusa software, and Prusa is a different brand of printers. They make awesome prints. I still want to try some of their machines, and they have similar printer to the Photon, which is the same resolution, same kind of print table and all that stuff. And their slicing software is awesome. So if we actually import, they actually take OBJs as well. If we actually bring in the leg in here, there are a few things that are nicer on this. Let me just increase the percentage. You can actually angle the model with a certain angle. So put it up, down. You can kind of like angle depending on certain faces or axes, I guess. Let me make it bigger. So this thing, to me, it does a very similar, if not a better job than the Formlabs software. So it is pretty straightforward. You just set the scale like that, and then you come in here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was using a different preset. So yeah, this has the same table as the Photon, and then we can kind of come in, put it there, and then once we're ready with the angle and everything, we just hit a support generator, and you can actually pick the different percentage of density of how many supports you want, and then just give it a auto generate supports. And this thing, does a flawless job so far. I had no problems generating supports with this. It gives you, a nice, bigger supports, better angles. You can see how big this thing is, and it's super nice. So yeah, like after this, now that you know the theory behind it, this is what I've been using, and that's how you kind of troubleshoot it and even understand why this is better. It's a lot less supports. Let's see if I can. It's a lot less supports in this. The supports are bigger. Even this print, it's about the same size. The other one's probably a little bigger. But this is, it just looks way nicer, and the result is way nicer. So from here, I just export everything, including supports, and it gives me the STL. I'm gonna delete this. What I've been doing is just bringing that in, importing that in here with the supports, and the scale is the same, and it's basically the same printing bed, and then I'm exporting it from here. The one thing I noticed too, and that's kind of what I said, I got some failed prints, is that when I was doing a print with a smaller layer thickness, I basically needed to increase the bottom exposure time, and this is definitely way too low. Ideally you want it to be like 60, because the bottom layers you want it to be like pretty dense and it's definitely stick on the base. So the more or the less layer thickness I had, the more bottom layers I was adding. So I was like doubling it up. So let's say, my original had 6. If I went here and put like 0.2, then I need to come here and put it 12, just so there's the same thickness that I had before on a smaller layer heights. So that's kind of a few, some of the things that I got some failed prints with that when I was trying. But then, that's what I'm saying, like compared to, and you guys can see now, like compared to, the filament stuff versus the resin, like the amount of stuff that you have to do on the filament printers, it's crazy compared to the resin ones. The resin is like you hit two buttons, even if you don't understand what's happening behind the scenes, you most likely get good results out of it because it is kind of plug and go, and you should be good. A lot of the things that you do is like, yeah, just setting the layer height, make the make the supports. Now that if you use the Prusa one, it's like two buttons, you're good to go, and you get exact same results that I have. For the filament, the amount of settings they have to do, the things they have to, the amount of study they have to do on like the temperature, the bed, like all these things, like took me a little bit to figure out the things that work the best for me. Because otherwise, like these are some of the first things that I did. Just kind of like, otherwise you get stuff that's all over the place, bunch of lines. So you see people doing stuff like that. So it's just more of like, trying it out, figuring out what works for you. And just, I guess, having some more fun in the process. But the resin ones are definitely like plug and play. If you're cool with the size of the things that you're printing, which are not too big, you can still make. You can still make good stuff. I'll give an example here because I'm making the Bowser, right? And the body is like big enough. This is kind of so you have an idea for the bed size. This is kind of like the max kind of width that I can print, right, on the bed. And then just kind of like the height, you can do more on the height, but you can still make pretty good prints. Here's an example of the cuts that I was doing for the Bowser. I actually made the head by itself, and it worked perfectly. The supports, it just gave me a little support on the teeth there, but it printed pretty flawless. I printed like this, actually like upside down, so like this. And it worked pretty well. On this one, I had a lot of problems inside the mouth because of the size of the teeth. It had a bunch of like little artifacts there. So he lost a bunch of the teeth. But on the resin one was pretty good. And now I just made this new one. So, because I'm going to make copies of this guy. So I had to split the jaw into two. And now it fits right in. So, if making copies, like the teeth would not come out I wasn't able to do a copy like with the mouth like that. So I just need to split it up. So that's that. So yeah, I mean, I hope this gave you guys like just some good idea of like the challenges, I guess, that it is with the 3D printing. It's not just a kind of a plug and go. There's a lot of little things, and it can be pretty stressful if you get failed prints and things like that. I have tons of, as you can see, there's tons more of failed prints and tests and things like that. But hopefully this gives you a good idea for like things to avoid, things to look at if you're thinking about getting one of these. It's super fun, but it could be a frustrating process. But yeah, let's jump on some of the questions.
Cool. Patrick's asking, is there a particular brand of resin you really like to use? He says, I've been using the Frozen matte gray, getting good results, but maybe you have a better suggestion.
That's what I'm using. So
okay.
I am gonna start testing it out. I was avoiding different resins just because it's always like one more thing to add on to the number of things that could go wrong, right? So if I already started with some of the different resins and it didn't work, it could be one more thing to troubleshoot. So I've been using the Photon one so far, but I do want to start testing out some different ones. Cool. Yeah, for sure.
Alex asking, would you recommend splitting up prints between the Ender and the Photon?
This is what I am trying to do now. So like if I had the Photon when I was doing the Yoshimitsu, I would most likely print this head on the Photon because it would probably fit pretty well. Yeah, it would work. And then just do the rest on the ender, because like I said, the torso, it came out pretty nice, but I could have done some of these small pieces on the Photon, like actually the sword came out pretty nice, but I could have done this on the Photon, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's the stuff that I'm trying with the Nova. I am planning to do a bigger, like a more of kind of a bigger print. So I am thinking of doing most of it on the Ender, on the Ender 5, and then maybe doing the head on the Photon. So yeah, I think it works for sure.
Cool. Diego's asked a couple of questions about just cleaning process in general, how you approach cleaning, sanding, acetoning pieces after they come out the printer. Is there a special kind of like technique you use, or are you just kind of building something?
Yeah, I mean, for the resin, you have to be real careful with the resin stuff because it is toxic, right? And so yeah, gloves, print. When the print just comes out of the printer, I do remove all the supports because the resin is still not cured 100%. So I remove all the supports, try to do like some cleanup, and then you have to put it on the like UV light or on the sun to cure it, 100% after that. So after that, you still have to kind of clean the tank, take out the resin. Yeah, so you have you can find those little filters, like resin filters that you can buy. So you just kind of pour the resin back into the container, the resin container, just to make sure there are no failed prints and still in the tank, kind of hanging in there. So there's a lot of I guess, little steps that needed to be made on the resin one for sure. Like the filament one is just kind of, the thing is not even hot. You can just take it out. That's it, But the resin, yeah, you have to kind of take it out, remove the supports with alcohol, kind of clean it with alcohol. So you kind of remove any other extra liquid that's on the resin or on the print, and then cure it on the sun. And then after that, you can like manipulate, sand it down without worry too much about, the resin being toxic. But yeah, those are the kind of the things. So you need a kind of a bigger space and a kind of bigger workspace to deal with all that cleaning stuff you have to do.
Cool. Neil is asking, in the Photon printer, do you have that top layer issue, just like the Ender, the top layer being a little messy?
Yes, you do, it's way less visible, but you do. Let's see if we can see this. Here we go, me again. Try to focus. I don't know if it's my face that.
Yeah, you'll probably need to cover up your face or if you even got a sheet or something you can put behind it, like a piece of cardboard, or I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe easier. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this one can't really see. But there's some kind of artifacts in there. Maybe too bright.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that might work. Oh, nearly.
Oh, this thing also has details on it. You dumbass.
Yeah, I was going to say it's focused on that. I think if we're doing these next time, probably get a separate camera for kind of close-ups and stuff. That'd be handy.
All right. This time.
Come on.
Oh,
so close.
Make my finger.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
but yeah, this thing does have line.
Mm-hmm.
But this thing is like super easy to sand too. This resin, so it's very easy to fix that. But you do find lines.
Cool. Rashid was asking just quickly, how often do you, or are you supposed to replace the film that holds the resin in the Photon?
It's only if you have failed prints, and then you kind of like punch a hole in that for some reason. And you try to clean it up, and then you have to replace it. Other than that, there's no like kind of a lifespan for it. I had to replace it once because I had a failed print that's stick in the bottom, and I went with a little spatula and punch a hole in it, so I had to replace it. But even that's like $10 to replace it. So it's like the tank for the Formlabs is also like pretty expensive, so still pretty cheap.
Diego asking also, what do you use if you want to patch up the seam lines for the resin prints that you can sand and paint later?
Epoxy. That's what I showed early on.
Okay, yeah. Epoxy. What else? Yeah, Lucas is asking, do the resins print a good amount of miniatures, or does the print consume a lot? Maybe ask him about average consumption. Probably would depend on the size, but yeah.
Like electrical energy, is that what you're talking about?
No, I was just talking about the resin and in general, like if you're using filament and stuff, does it consume it quite quickly? How often does a reel usually last you?
Oh yeah.
It will just come to the size, yeah.
Yeah, it depends. Like I could print all these. Like there's tons of prints. You can probably weigh them, but like you can print a lot of stuff with like half a liter to a liter. I have tons of. I've used it. I think like a liter and a half with all the prints that I've done so far, and it's quite a lot of prints. Yeah, this thing is pretty big too. Yeah, not too much.
Cool. Serg is asking, I don't know if you covered it already, but where are the best moments to remove the supports from a resin print?
It'd be right after it's done. Like you want to make sure you remove while it's still not cured, otherwise it becomes a little fragile. So then when you're removing it, you might create some gaps and stuff. So yeah, right after it's done, I remove them. And then cure it.
Cool.
Maybe this way. If you play the game.
It's a Valkyrie. Yeah. Those were badass. Was that it was Igor that worked on them, right? The Valkyrie stuff? Yeah.
He made this helmet, yeah. But it was like, since we had a lot of Valkyries, we all made one.
Oh, nice.
But this one is Igor's.
The last one is bullshit. I'm just going to put that out there. the final one is a tough motherfucker to beat. Okay, Patrick's asking, I'm not too sure, but it says the Color Fab filament so far giving the best results in experience.
Yes, most definitely giving the best results. The only complaint I'll have about it is it's really hard. So it's really hard to sand it. You could use the acetone to clean it out, but if you're just sanding with like, I guess water sand, what do we call those things? The sandpaper. It's fucking hard. So that's the only complaint I have. But this thing is like indestructible.
Jocelyn was asking, is there any printers upcoming or new technology that excites you about 3D printing? I mean, I know you're talking about photon or introducing resin stuff. I don't know if there was anything else that you've seen that's kind of cool.
I think, the print bed is something that's definitely a game changer. So like the Formlabs with the Form 3, with a bigger print bed, that thing is fucking sweet, but it's like 10 grand. So the other side of it that excites me is just being more affordable. Like these printers for me, I actually rather have that than the bigger print bed, because I'll rather spend a little less money and just have fun with it, rather than everything that I want to print being that kind of precious kind of investment. I just want to be able to like print stuff and just be more affordable. So like, yeah, these printers like the Photon, and there's a lot of different ones coming out. The Prusa SL1, like there's like tons of stuff out there that are exciting to me. So yeah, for sure.
Andreas was asking, is STL the universal file for 3D printing? Is that what you typically work with?
Yeah. It used to be. Like now, like more and more they taking OBJs, but STL has been kind of the default. I hate STL. But yeah.
Okay, so Kevin was asking, did you run into any stringing issues, mostly with your prints? How do you work around that?
Yeah, we kind of touched base a little bit of that on the Cura, but the stringing is basically due to like temperature and the speed of the machine. So the way I fixed it was to lower the temperature and then to reduce the speed a little bit. It's either one or the other. You have to kind of find what's happening with you, but it's due to like maybe it's melting a little too much and it's going too fast, so it creates a lot of webbing. So yeah, for me it was a little bit of both, just reducing temperature and speed.
Cool. Andrea's asking, any thoughts on the Ultimaker? I've heard good things, but I don't know if you've tried it at all.
No. What's that?
One at the top. Yeah, it's just asking about the Ultimaker. If you've had any experience with it.
No,
I think the Ultimakers, it was one of the first ones I'd actually heard about when it came to 3D printing. I think it's actually quite a big unit. It's quite kind of. I think that actually it's more for just larger scale stuff, like you're saying, like industrial stuff, like the 10 grand one you're talking about. I think the Ultimakers make just generally bigger 3D printers for large scale projects. But yeah,
right.
Yeah, Ultimaker was definitely one of the first ones I heard about. So, G was asking, are there any companies who you work with that only want your ZTL model and then they cut it themselves, or do you have the responsibility to do this in ZBrush?
Yeah, no, it's a little bit of both. It depends on the company. Sideshow, like all the models, I think it's more about pricing. Like they would rather have someone else do the cutting than to pay at least my rate to do cutting and stuff. So like I work with them where they do the cutting. Like for my own models, like you could pay like different companies to do the cutting for you if you want it, because they do offer that type of service. It's not everybody who knows how to do that type of work. But I've had to cut my stuff myself as well. So yeah, there's a little bit of both.
Cool.
You definitely need to know how to do it no matter what, just to understand even how you. Because even at Sideshow, I didn't do the final cuts like male and female and all that stuff, but the piece was already kind of pre-made for that. So like let's say the arm, even though I didn't do the Boolean part of it, it was still like the arm was one mesh, the torso was a different mesh. So it was kind of built, already thinking of how we were going to produce it, because you don't want to have to course correct it later on and have to re-sculpt a bunch of stuff.
Cool. A couple of people actually asking about painting process. Are you planning to paint any of your stuff, or have you tried painting these resins? Is there any tips for that?
I am probably actually paint some stuff today, so make sure you check. I'll share some stuff on the Instagram. But a lot of the stuff that I use is more kind of like miniature, kind of miniature type of paints. A lot of like kind of I like these kind of the army painters, war paints. They have a bunch of kind of like pre-made colors. But yeah, but basically it's just a lot of acrylics, airbrushing with acrylics, and then dry brushing. More kind of the standard kind of miniature painting style, but with a little more airbrushing.
Yeah, brushing kicks ass.
But I'll try to share some stuff on Instagram so you guys can see.
Cool. Just a couple more questions, guys, before we end up. So just keep posting them. I'll keep going through them. Diego was asking where we can see your collab with Anycubic for the new organic resin. Is that going to be up on your Instagram at one point?
It'll be on Instagram for sure. I haven't got the resin yet, but it'll be up on Instagram.
Okay, cool. Just general questions as well, guys. I know a lot of you were asking about portfolio revisions, but I think we're going to maybe even make like an entire class out of that at one point, because I probably could spend a couple hours just going through people's stuff and giving feedback. So we'll put that up at one point. And Raph will probably select a few people to take part in that, but that'll be in future classes. Again, if you guys are watching, make sure to check back on the Gumroads, because these videos will be up at one point, and you can just watch back over if you missed anything. Also remember to sign up for any future classes. Yes, Patrick, just get into that. Future classes will be coming up. We're going to try and do these once a month, every month if we can, obviously permitting our schedule and the ideas we have, but at the moment, because these are brand new, we do have a lot of ideas. It's just kind of finding what will fit best over the 2-day structure. I think we have talked about doing a more traditional class. So Raf would actually sculpt something with clay. That's one thing we've thought about. The portfolio reviews, of course, and then maybe even one focusing on professional elements, how to present yourself, interviews, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot still to come up. But yeah, we're going to try and space them so there's one at least every month. And a lot of people asking about older classes. Yeah, we are working on that. At the moment, me and Rafa are in talks kind of right now about a plan to distribute these online. So initial talks will probably be, it might be website based, it might be something else. We're still kind of weighing up what works best for the way we're going to deliver it, but there will be something coming up in the future that will focus on past events and past classes we've done if you guys want to repurchase them.
Yeah, thank you, most definitely.
Cool. Gee, yes, I am also a 3D artist. I'm hoping to do some 3D at one point and get into the industry as well. But you can find my portfolio if you just search me on ArtStation. You'll find my stuff.
Just to touch on that question real quick about the how to find work for sculpting and which companies. We kind of talked about that yesterday about like, you know, dedicate on your own portfolio, like put out the work out there. If you want to work for certain companies, like there's a lot of different companies for collectibles that you know, Sideshow. The best way is just look out companies that are actually like going to Comic-Con and stuff. You know, Sideshow, McFarlane Toys, Gentle Giant, Prime One. See out of the top of my head, even like Hot Toys. There's like all these companies like Kotobukiya. All like there's tons of companies, especially companies that are coming up that you could work for. But make sure like if you want to work for those companies, the best way is to try to replicate whatever they're making and putting the work out there. They're always looking for sculptors. Post out on ArtStation. Go find the people who actually work for those companies, and that's the best way to do it. You're not gonna find a work application to go work on those companies. You have to be putting the work and making that same quality of work yourself, and they will come to you. That's the only way you could possibly do it. If you have the opportunity to go to those events, you can go and talk to people. That's probably the best way you're gonna find to like meet them. All those all the people who are working for those companies are available for you to talk to them, but you have to put in the work. That's kind of the way I got projects with them. I have a lot of friends that work with them. You have to put in the work and show that you could execute on that vision for sure.
Cool.
But yeah, you know, like Gordon said, there are ideas for future workshops. We're going to be trying to do more of those monthly. We're going to try to make the other ones available. Yes, we're going to talk more about, you know, concepting and Photoshop and comps and all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that we are kind of thinking about doing. So
yeah, 6 hours isn't really enough to do a lot of things. Sometimes you could spend a whole week, I think, learning for stuff. It's some of these subjects are so deep; they need multiple days. So yeah.
That's definitely something that we kind of need to talk about too. How do we? Yeah, I cannot make, you know, things in like, you know, 3 hours every time. So how do we kind of expand that and make it a little more, you know, further on development of like with the techniques and stuff?
Yeah, maybe even perhaps one day, but a longer day. Yeah, there's ways of approaching it, but we'll figure something out. And yeah.
And I see some questions to you guys of like, you know, the painting job or some of the stuff that little outside of the collectible stuff that I want to make sure like there's already content for that out there. They could find, like, go to my Gumroad, like you can find time lapse and stuff like that. Go to my Instagram and all that stuff. This one, again, I was mostly focused on the 3D printing. I try to share as much as I know so far. I am always learning as well. Everything that I tested out, getting deeper into more of the technology side of it. So I really hope it helped you guys. If you have any questions or further questions, like please make sure to send me on Instagram or send me on email. You guys have the Gumroad contact as well. The videos are going to be uploaded to Gumroad after this, and you can watch it again. And yeah, send ideas. Make sure to keep in touch. You can contact Gordon as well anytime you guys want. He's also like, we're always thinking about new things that we could do together. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna kind of stop it here, and we're gonna process the video and upload it for you guys, and we'll go from there.
Cool.
Cool. Thank
Cool.
you guys.
Later, guys. Bye.
Yeah.